Welcome to On Deck with the Ketts, the official show of the Cotuit Kettleers, taking you through everything happening around Lowell Park and all throughout the village. Now here is your Cotuit media team for this episode of On Deck with the Ketts.
Welcome back to another episode of On Deck with the Ketts, the official show of the Cotuit Kettleers. I'm Rylee, one of your broadcasters for the 2022 season, joined alongside co-host and sideline reporter Jenna Meyer. Thrilled to be back for another episode with a very special guest joining us today, former MLB pitcher and a familiar name around the village of Cotuit, a member of the 2006 Kettleers team and an all-star for the Cape League as well during that summer, Cory Gearrin. Cory, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Rylee, Jenna, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So to get started, just taking a look back, what was your baseball upbringing like, and when did you know that you wanted to pursue a career in baseball?
Good question. So I played baseball pretty much as far back as I can remember. I grew up around ball fields. Both my parents were athletes. So even after their college playing days were done, I was around softball fields and, they continued to play. And so I just had a passion for it. It was something I can't even remember it not being a part of my life. So I pretty much started as soon as I could. I was, I think 5, 6 years old playing t-ball. But I never really thought I would have an opportunity to play professionally. Honestly, I think until I came to the Cape. I think I knew at the end of high school, I wanted to keep playing, and then I hoped to find an opportunity in college. But I was never drafted or anything like that. And it never really seemed like it would be a reality. So once I came to the Cape and I was able to play against top-notch competition and people began to tell me like, hey, you may really have an opportunity here. That's when it kind of sunk in that like, oh, this might be something.
And then you mentioned school already. So you attended school and played at Mercer University. What was your recruiting process like? And what was your time at the school like?
That's a good question. Also, so before I actually got to Mercer, I went to a junior college. So I was very fortunate to get to Mercer, to get to a D1 school that, now has really become a power kind of in the Southeast. Perennially. But coming out of high school, I was really just looking for any opportunity I could. I came from a very small town in East Tennessee. Really no one I ever knew had played professional baseball. And so I was in a position where I was basically just sending out letters to every school in the country, hoping someone would respond and want me to come. And really the only opportunity I got was from a junior college in North Georgia that had seen me play second base. Honestly, they really weren't looking at me as a pitcher at the time. And fortunately, I got there and they converted me to a pitcher because I wasn't a very good hitter. And that kind of put me on the path to developing as a sidearm pitcher, trying to find my niche. And, when you're at junior college, after your sophomore year, you're done. So you really need to have a plan going into your sophomore year about where you want to go. And Mercer was really one of the only schools that gave me an opportunity. They saw me play, and really my development, it was still really early in my development. I wasn't a prospect. I didn't have a lot of talent, honestly, at the time. I had a lot of confidence, and I hoped that I would get to where I wanted to be. But they really took a shot on me, and that meant a lot for a Division I school to give me an opportunity when I really hadn't evolved to the player I would become. They took a chance on me, and as I progressed during my sophomore year and then on the Cape during the summer, a place where you get tons of attention from lots of schools, it was important to me to stick by Mercer and, to follow through with my commitment there as my talent kind of evolved. So I'm grateful for the opportunity they gave me. I'm thankful that I, stood by that commitment because it ended up being a great opportunity to play there and kind of to be close to home as well and play.
So you touched on your collegiate experience a little bit already, but it ultimately led you to the village of Cotuit. What went into your journey to ending up on the Cape?
It was pretty crazy, honestly. I wasn't really invited to play on the Cape, surprisingly. My freshman year, I played down in the Texas Collegiate League. And didn't perform particularly well down there. And so my focus my sophomore year was really like, I need to get to a school. I need another place to go. And so I didn't even really focus on getting a summer team to play for. I was really focused on my season and getting to a college. And so once my sophomore season was kind of wrapping up, a teammate of mine at Young Harris, Jay Brown, was committed to play up at Cotuit. And another teammate of mine had played there the year before, Charlie Blackman, and we were all roommates. And so, anytime you have a friend who does something, you're like, well, I can do that. If they can do it, I can do it. And so I had asked Jay, I said, hey, will you ask the manager at Cotuit if I could just come up and try out or something? Like, will they look at me and see if maybe I can get an opportunity? And so he asked, and Coach Roberts said, I can't make any promises, but he's welcome to drive up here and I'll watch him throw a bullpen. And as you know, on the Cape, a lot of times there are guys who are committed to the team that are still playing in the College World Series or have been drafted. And there's some opportunity early in the season for temporary players to get a contract. And so Coach Roberts watched me throw once and he said, I always like to have a sidearm pitcher. The guy who's coming isn't here yet. If he comes, that's kind of going to be his spot. But, I'll let you have a 2-week contract. And I'm very thankful that he did.
Awesome. So you just mentioned Coach Roberts a little bit. And for those who don't follow you on Twitter, you mentioned that Coach Roberts played a huge role actually in the trajectory of your career. So what was it like learning from him specifically?
It was fantastic. He played a huge role in my life. That summer up on the Cape was a flex point in terms of the trajectory of my life and what was going to happen in the years to come. And Coach Roberts was really central in that. I mentioned that I didn't get drafted. I didn't really have any opportunities. But after I had thrown that bullpen for Coach Roberts and he told me, hey, I'll give you a temporary contract, a professional team had called and offered me a free agent deal. It wasn't much of anything, but to me, it was a really big deal. It was something I never thought I would get an opportunity to do. And I asked Coach Roberts advice in terms of like kind of what little he knew about me and what he saw in that opportunity. And he gave me some of the best advice I ever received, and probably something I wouldn't have just instinctively done myself. He encouraged me to stay on the Cape, to kind of believe in myself and bet big on the opportunity that I had there, and really go for what I want and not to just kind of settle for whatever comes along. And that was fantastic advice. It's advice that I've continued to try to, lean on throughout my life, and very thankful for that. But just as a leader, Coach Roberts was tremendous. I think, it's really like the attitude and the energy that he would bring every day. I feel like is what set him apart for me in my career and my experience with him. I remember one of the first things we did up on the Cape was we had like a rain out, and he told us like, we're all meeting here regardless of the rain out. We're all getting together and we're going to go to the gym and we're going to get a workout together. And so, we're a bunch of college guys, like, okay, we'll do that. No big deal. So he takes us and we get to the gym and he pulls us into the spin room, and he says he's going to be leading the spin class. And so we're like, okay, this old guy, whatever, like we're young athletes, no big deal. And he put us all to shame. I don't know if anyone made it the whole way, but he was cruising and we were just all dying. And so that to me really set the tone. I was like, okay, this guy's different. Like, if he says it, he can back it up. And that's what it was. And I think the team that we had that summer, really just bought into his message, his energy, and really kind of took on his own presence on the field. So I always loved working with him that summer. And, I obviously stayed in touch with him throughout my career, and we crossed paths lots of times, but he's just fantastic. Yeah.
So to backtrack just a little bit from that point where you decided to turn down that initial offer, how did you adjust your mindset knowing that you could have potentially turned down a shot at your dream, not knowing kind of what was coming next?
Yeah, that was a big challenge. Yeah, I didn't sleep very well after that, making that decision for a little bit. It was tough, but I knew that it was the right decision. I knew what he was saying was true for me. I think at the time, often we just look for whatever opportunity is there, and we don't really self-evaluate in terms of like, is this what I want right now? Is this the right thing for me right now? And just because a door opens doesn't mean you have to walk through it. Like timing is very important, especially in professional baseball. You may only get one chance, so you really want to be ready for it. And so it was definitely a challenge. It took a couple of days for me to kind of like shift my focus back. But as you know, once you get on the field, baseball has a way of like directing your focus to the moment. And so I knew that the competition I was going to face up there was the best I'd ever faced in my life, and it was going to take everything I had. And I also knew I really only had a 2-week window, so I better perform really quickly if I wanted to stay and really capitalize on that opportunity. So it really was just focusing on staying. I really had to try to capitalize on that window of time, and it wasn't easy, but I'm thankful that was a decision I made, and I'm thankful that the competition that was there and the team that I had around me really forced everything I had to be focused on the opportunity there on the Cape.
So after trying out and being given a temporary contract to eventually becoming an all-star in the Cape League, what aspect of your game grew the most during your summer on the Cape?
I really think it was just my confidence. Coming from a junior college and being, I already felt like I don't know if I belong here. You have teammates from University of Texas and University of, UCLA, places like that, like big time schools, big time talent, guys that are on, draft boards and top prospect things. And I was just there on a temporary contract from a junior college. And so a big thing for me was being able to see like, hey, my ability plays here. I can hang with these guys. And that was a big deal. I don't know that my game improved a ton, but how it came through, I think, definitely changed. Having that confidence and being able to go out and know that you're as good as anyone who steps on the field, that's a big deal. And I think that carried over, to Mercer when I got there, and definitely into pro ball, where I knew I wasn't going to be facing anyone better than what I'd faced on the Cape. Like the Cape brings the best of the best out. So if you can hang there, you can really hang anywhere in professional baseball. And so that was a really big deal for me. And I think it kind of laid the groundwork for being able to capitalize on opportunities to come down the road.
So fast forwarding from your collegiate now to the professional career that you had, was there any particular game or moment that stands out to you that kind of just brings it all together for you from your professional career?
So in my professional career, it's really tough because honestly, going back to that whole confidence thing, there are more games that I can think back on from the Cape that I really recall being like, man, that was like a big step for me. At least until I got to the major leagues. Obviously, everyone's like major league debut and have your first kind of impactful outing. That's a big deal. When I debuted in the major leagues, that first game where I, put up zeros and did it on the big stage, that's obviously a huge deal. But I can remember, being on the Cape, and he's been a teammate of mine now in the big leagues, so I can say this. But we were playing against YD on the summer, that summer, and Buster Posey was playing for them. And at that point, Buster was like a top 10 guy, and Jay Brown, who came up to the Cape with me from Young Harris, made the All-Star team. His family was there, and Jay's from Georgia, Buster's from Georgia, and there really wasn't anything bigger in baseball in the Southeast than Buster Posey at the time. And I remember I closed out a game against YD. We beat them like 3-2, and I struck out Buster to like end the game. And I came off the field, and Jay's dad came up to me. He's like, "Man, you just struck out Buster Posey." He's like, "Do you know what that means?" And at the time, I really didn't, because I wasn't plugged into what all was happening in college baseball or the draft or anything. I was just trying to keep my head above water. But after that, kind of realizing, oh man, like this guy was the best in the country, and you just struck him out like in a big way. Like you're not going to run into anybody that's better than that. And so those kind of moments throughout your career where you're just saying like, okay, like I am good enough. I can do it here. I can do it there. The stuff that happened on the Cape in terms of me going from where I was just a year before, where I was a high school kid just trying to find any opportunity, to being on the Cape, a year and a half later and competing against everyone and really holding my own. that to me really changed the course of my career, my confidence. Definitely, I think until I got to the major leagues, and then everything in the major leagues is like a different kind of moment where you're like, wow, I can't believe I just did that kind of thing.
So just looking back on your time as a Kettleer, what is the biggest piece of advice that you would give to incoming Kettleers specifically, and then just more generally, advice that you would give to young players looking to have a future in professional baseball?
Yeah, I would say, anyone who has an opportunity to play on the Cape, I recommend going. I think if anyone gets that chance, it's still probably the most magical like summer I've ever had. Definitely in baseball. I played for a long time professionally. I grew up playing, but just something about the environment there, the level of competition, the opportunity that comes from being able to play there. And if you can succeed there, you can really succeed anywhere for years to come in professional baseball. It's just a really magical time. So I would say players up there really just enjoy the moment, like compete hard, don't take it for granted. It's not a vacation by any means. Like it's a tremendous opportunity and an honor to even get to be a part of that tradition. But really just soak it up. I mean, we had so much fun. We had a great team. We just really enjoyed it. It was honestly as much fun as I've ever had in professional baseball or college baseball. So I would say just be in the moment, enjoy it, work your tail off and lock it in for 2 months, and you'll be amazed the impact that short time can really have, and the memories that you can carry away from it for life. Just speaking to like young athletes who want to play in college or professionally, I say just do the work. Really, it's about showing up every day, just getting started and continuing to show up. Nobody has the answers. There's no like magic recipe. It's just putting the work in, doing what you love, being passionate about it, loving the process, and just like being relentless, not giving away a single day, a single rep, really being able to focus on that and take a lot of joy in it. And if you can do that, you'll do it for a really long time, because as simple as it sounds, there aren't many people that are really willing to do that. And it's just getting a little bit better every day. If you can find just some way to improve, even if it's resting optimally, it's not all just like working harder, it's working smarter. And how can you find an edge every day, whether it's improving your approach, getting extra work in. It's just about being committed to improving and being relentless.
That is some really great advice for future Kettleers and hopeful baseball players as well. But now, after your time in Major League Baseball, what is your life looking like now?
Oh, it's a great question. Yeah, it's interesting. All ball players like go through this, whether it's after college or professionally. So a lot of it's really just been, I have a 1-year-old now. My wife and I have our first kid. And so a lot of it's figuring out like being a dad and what life looks like, not being at the field all the time and that kind of thing. But I'm still doing a lot of work with teams that I've played for, still doing stuff with the Braves down in Atlanta, with San Francisco out on the West Coast, finding ways to just continue to have impact. A big thing that's a passion for me. One, because I've been going through this transition from baseball to non-baseball, is really helping facilitate that process for other players, both early in their career, who, it's important to be focused on your career, finding ways to improve on the field, but it's equally important to be considering, what you're going to do down the road, because everyone goes through that process of like, all right, you're not going to play baseball forever. Hopefully you make millions of dollars and like you just do whatever you want for the rest of your life. But even those guys, it's important to have purpose. It's important to have things that balance you out. And so, I've been working with a couple of the teams to implement a program to help with that, to have that conversation, in large part based on a program I've been a part of at Harvard Business School that helps educate professional athletes across the sports spectrum on, sports entertainment business, like what it looks like to put together business models. And it's a lot of like case study work and things like that to, bring real world experience into a population that just traditionally has a very narrow experience in terms of business and off the field stuff. So it's opening up that conversation, empowering athletes, and kind of helping the process of moving into the next phase of life. So that's important to me. And, there are a lot of things that I'm finally able to explore in terms of just passion projects and things that are interesting in business and investing, things like that. But, because of my experience, because of what I went through on the Cape, helping the next generation and the people that are coming behind me have as enjoyable and smooth a process as possible. That's something I care a lot about, and I'm just very thankful. I feel very lucky to hit all the stops that I did along the way. I don't think I could have, planned it that way, but I was fortunate to have those opportunities, and so I want other people to have as many opportunities as they can, if it's something that they want to do. So.
Awesome. Cory, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. If you don't already follow him on Twitter, highly recommend for some great insight on business, baseball, and life. So thank you so much, Cory. On behalf of my co-host, Jenna Meyer, I'm Rylee Pay. Thank you for tuning in on this episode of On Deck with the Ketts, and we'll catch you next time in another episode.